Hi and welcome everybody. Today we have Stephen Henry or @Rev from wizardsplace.com. He's going to talk to us about WordPress plugins, which I'm really excited about. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Rev. Welcome and thank you for coming on board.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that. I'm going to share a little bit tonight. It's nothing spectacular. Let me share my screen here, and I'm actually using Notepad tonight, so this is not a major slide presentation, just some notes to guide me, and so you can, yeah, very sophisticated. We're using some basic stuff tonight, and this will give people a chance. I'm suffering from a little bit of a cold tonight, so my pronunciation on some of these may sound a little clouded. And this will give you a chance to be able to copy them down if there's something of interest. And I want to share, first of all, just kind of an overview of the structure of WordPress, because I think we sometimes forget this. We get using WordPress and we sort of forget about the very basic things about it that make it such a good choice. And it's why WordPress represents about 60% of the content management system marketplace. 60%. That's a huge number. And about 25% of the overall installed base of modern websites. So that's really quite a number, quite a success story. And I always love when some people contact me and say, "Hey, you really should try this. This is the new WordPress. This is going to take over." And they've got some little new product they're starting out now. Hey, it's very possible. WordPress started out that way too, but WordPress is so entrenched into the current structure that unless there's a big change in some way or some huge failing, WordPress is going to be around for a long time, and they're going to be top of the heap. There are other website platforms. There are reasons for using some of those, but you really want to think clearly through your choices. And if you're not using WordPress, you really want to ask yourself, why not? It's just a good choice for almost any type of website. Certainly anybody that is hearing me speak probably has a business model that suits the use of WordPress. So that's why we're talking about that tonight. And so WordPress is really broken into 4 key elements. There are the core files. That's the WordPress you get. That's what comes in the box. And WordPress on its own, right out of the box, is a full-fledged website and blogging system. It does the whole deal. And you can install WordPress and use it right from the get-go and build yourself a successful system. But there are 3 other components that you really need to consider. The next one is the theme, and the theme is just the look and feel of your site. It's kind of the clothes that you put on the bare body of the site, and you can choose from literally thousands of available themes, both free and premium or paid themes, and this is the thing that there's a whole business built on WordPress. WordPress itself is free. It's open source software. It can be developed. It is developed by a huge community of developers worldwide, and that's one of its major strengths. And there are other components for it that are built that are free. And some people say, I've heard people say, you get what you pay for. You should go with a premium theme. They're better than the free themes. Well, that just flies in the face of what WordPress is all about. WordPress is free. WordPress is open source. So if you think premium is better, then use something else other than WordPress. It's as simple as that. Because obviously if WordPress is free themes and plugins will fit the bill as well. It's just that WordPress, which is released under the GPL, the General Public License, and I really encourage you to go and read that. You can find it listed if you search for just GPL, the initials, do a Google search, you'll find it, the parent site and where you can read it. And I encourage you to read it. It's not too long of a document. It is written in a little bit of legalese, but it's actually very easily read. And I encourage that because a lot of people don't read it. They don't know what it is. They don't know the open source structure of WordPress and how it's licensed. And then they complain about things like, oh, it's unethical to resell or give away commercial premium themes. You're taking away from the people who are trying to earn a living. Well, maybe that's so. I'm not going to argue ethics with you tonight, but the whole principle of WordPress is sharing and giving. And so the fact that these people are able to build their business on the back of the work of so many people who do it for free, maybe that's unethical. You want to look at the other side of the coin. So read the GPL and understand it. It definitely is legitimate to sell. You could actually take WordPress itself, the core files, and sell them if you wanted to. I'm not sure anybody would buy them from you because they're available for free, but you could do that. The GPL would allow that. And you can also take legitimate premium products that are built for WordPress that interface with WordPress, themes and plugins, and resell them. But be very careful that you're reselling the open source code, because sometimes there are parts of those items that aren't open source, and you'll get into copyright restrictions and so on there. So again, this presentation isn't about that tonight in detail, so I just want to touch on it and move along. So the theme, you can get a premium theme or a free theme. I really recommend that you do some deep thinking about the theme that you choose. Pretty doesn't necessarily make your site successful. There's nothing wrong with pretty, but be sure that you're looking at function as well when you set up the theme. Make sure the theme is going to do what you want. And don't get into the habit. I've worked with people who do this. They kind of regularly change the theme on their website because they get bored with it. Oh, it looks the same. I want to give it a fresh coat of paint. Well, that's fine, but your customers, your visitors, your readers aren't necessarily bored with it, and they feel comfortable when they come back and find you and the website looks roughly the same. It's called branding. McDonald's, they're pretty good at what they do. And McDonald's stores, you walk in and, the counter is in a certain place, the eating area is a certain place, the washrooms are over in a certain place. I mean, it all kind of fits. And they have 2 or 3 distinct models for their stores, and they all look the same. The colors, they've got a couple of different color schemes, and when you walk into a McDonald's, you're in a McDonald's. I'm not suggesting that McDonald's food is the best in the world, but it certainly is the best recognized in the world. And that's through consistency. So keep that in mind with your website when you're picking a theme. Make sure you have one that works for you, and generally try to have one that you can live with, because your customers, your readers will be much happier if they find the consistency with your website. Plugins, what we're going to talk about tonight, these are modules that simply do something. They're extras. They're extensions to your website, things that are not built into core. And WordPress did this deliberately. They've set up core to be very basic, and they allow the addition of plugins. The WordPress organization itself has released certain plugins. We'll talk a little bit about a couple of those tonight. But mostly they've left it open for third-party developers, and again, paid or free, premium or free plugins, to be available to add extra features. And they work, the WordPress core organization works at making WordPress the best they can, and then they allow people to add the features. And it's as easy as dropping those plugins into the WordPress structure to have them activate and be there, so that they deliver an extra function into your website. In most cases, no coding required, and sometimes very little configuration. So it's very easy to add features to a WordPress website. And in essence, anything you can think of to do if it's possible to code it, it can be added through a plugin into WordPress. So it's a feature that sets WordPress apart from almost every other website system available. And then finally, the fourth item, and this is the most important one. Once you've got your website going and you've selected a theme and you've added some plugins for the various features that you want, your content. And WordPress has been designed to separate the content from the rest of the site so that it is easy to add content, easy to edit and maintain content, and you can back up your content and other settings and choices that you've made so that you can restore your site easily if there's if there's a loss or a problem. And it makes WordPress a very safe site to use. So we're going to jump in and talk about particular plugins tonight. And I'm going to share a range of plugins. I have used all of these. I currently use most of them on sites that I either own myself or that I manage for clients. And I'm very happy with these plugins. Now, there's alternate choices. I'll mention some of those as I go along, but I didn't want to burden this presentation. I mean, there's literally more than 50,000 plugins available for WordPress. So, Susan, I didn't think we had quite enough time to cover those. So I'm going to cover a couple or 3 dozen of them, and that's all. I'm going to go quickly through these. So, and I will take questions at the end, but I want to just run through them quickly.
Okay.
If you have you might want to write down any names if they kind of interest you, and of course the replay of this will be available. I want to start with a set of what I call starter plugins. And if you're not familiar with WordPress at all, a good plugin to begin with is called Core Tweaks WP Setup. And that's just an easy way to get into the inside of the core WordPress installation and set up a handful of things that some people never set up. They don't even know are there, or just are a little more tricky to configure initially, and this just makes it a breeze. You'll only use this plugin once at the beginning, but it's a good one to start with. Once you've used it, you can take it out if you want or deactivate it. I leave it in because sometimes you need to go back and change a setting, but you don't have to leave it active. You can deactivate it so it doesn't put any load on your site. The second plugin is the one I'm suggesting is WordFence Security. There are a handful of good security plugins. This is the one that I like for a number of reasons. It's well designed, it's a solid plugin, and as you'll see at the end of my presentation, the company that makes this shares a lot of good security and information and advice with people. So it's definitely a solid contender in the field of security plugins. Other people have favorites, and you may have somebody that says, no, WordFence is no good, use this one. Well, the difference between the top 4 or 5 security plugins is minimal, and the quality of WordFence is undeniable. If somebody doesn't like it, that's fine, but you shouldn't suggest it's no good just because you like something else. WordFence is a rock-solid security plugin. It's easy to install right out of the box. It's configured for relatively good security, and it is certainly a good choice. Some people will say, well, why do I need a security plugin? Isn't WordPress secure itself? Yes, WordPress out of the box is one of the better, most secure plugins or secure websites available. But all websites are subject to hacking, and there are certain types of hacking that you just you can't deal with in the core files as well as you can deal with in a plugin like WordFence. And you need to be updating the security to deal with the problems that are out there, the security issues, the hacking, because those guys are always working to beat whatever system there is. So by doing that in a plugin, the plugin can be updated regularly without having to affect the whole core system. And I think you'll find that to be a much more flexible way of doing security. WP Clone by WP Academy is a small, lightweight backup program that I like for quick backups. It only backs up the database where WordPress stores all of its information, the content that you add, and the folder in the WordPress installation that contains the plugins, your file uploads, your images, your themes, those kinds of things, the things that you choose and add on to core. That's all it backs up. So it's light and it's quick. I like to use it for backing up before I do a major update on the site, updating plugins or the core files. Then if something goes wrong, I can restore it back and pick up where I left off, or where I started, I guess would be better. And I use it after I've added enough to a site. If I've added 4 or 5 posts on a single sitting, and I don't want to lose those, then I back up at that point. So I can get a footprint, a benchmark of where I can restore to if something goes wrong, and I won't have lost all of that work. And because it's quick and easy to do, it's more likely that you will do it. A lot of other backup programs take quite a while to run, and you don't necessarily want, you're ready to update your site. You're gonna update your plugins. You don't want to sit around for 15 minutes while you do that. Before you do that, WP Clone's a good choice. And you only need that much of a backup because all you have to do if you lost the whole site is reinstall WordPress core and then restore your backup, and you'll be right back to where you were. You don't need to back up the core files because they're available for free download anytime you need them. Updraft Plus is also a backup plugin. It's a bigger outfit that backs up the whole site, and it backs it up to cloud storage if you choose, which is a great idea. And it segments the file so that it is able to handle large backups, which WP Clone does have a limit to the size that it will do. It has to be a pretty big installation before WP Clone can't handle it, but Updraft will handle any size file, and it allows you to automate your backups. WP Clone is a manual backup system. Updraft is a manual or automatic backup. I like to set up backups on most sites to back up automatically once a week. Excellent plugin. All of these so far are free, and I will indicate when you have to purchase one if it's only available in a paid version. Most of these have paid version updates. Some of them don't. But you can update to the paid version, and in most cases you don't need to. If there's a specific need, check the paid version, but in most cases the free version is adequate for your use. Yoast SEO is one of a handful of good helper programs for doing your own SEO. The free version is good enough for most usage, and I like Yoast SEO for my clients because it teaches you the SEO that you need to do. SEO is a very complex and complicated subject, but there's a lot of it that you can do yourself, and Yoast helps you do that. WP Spam Shield is a plugin I've been using for a little while now, and I'm a big fan of Akismet, the plugin that comes with core for handling spam in comment spam especially, but other spam on your site. And WP Spam Shield, I was referred to it. I gave it a try, and I really like it. It seems to pick up where Akismet leaves off, and does everything Akismet does, and then it does a little bit more. So I'm kind of moving in that direction. But if you're not sure, Akismet is a good solid foundational choice. WordPress Editorial Calendar is something that everybody should have. Everybody should have an editorial calendar for their blogging. It allows you to organize and easily post blogs ahead that will then automatically come into play on a certain date. So you can sit down on a Sunday afternoon and write 5 or 10 blogs, get them all set up and scheduled, and then they will pop into your blog automatically going forward. Good use of time and resources for doing blogging. Excuse me. Video user manuals. This is a premium theme only and quite expensive, but it provides a set of videos, about 64 videos that are short, compact, to the point videos that will deal with all the inner workings of WordPress. So if you're not sure how to use certain things, or you forget because you haven't used them for a while, it's a good choice. The videos are updated automatically when the versions change, and they match your version. So until you update the video, if you update the core files, then the videos will change automatically. Expensive, about $27 a month commercially, but I provide this free to all of my clients, so it's a good choice. Elementor Page Builder. There's several page builders. You've heard of many of them. I like Elementor. It's free. It's very good. There is a premium version. You don't necessarily need it unless there's extra features that you want. But it's one of the best that I've found, and I've used several, so worth looking at. AMP, Accelerated Mobile Pages. It's a plugin that converts your website automatically and delivers your content in a mobile-friendly format that isn't just showing your theme. Most website themes, even when they're, when they'll collapse and look reasonably good on other devices like tablets or cell phones, they really aren't designed to display properly for mobile. But AMP is a system of taking your content and delivering just the content. It's a Google-developed concept, and they're the biggies when it comes to producing content for mobile delivery. It's worth having a look at this. WhoSidebars is a good way to control your sidebars. You can actually have different content in sidebars on different pages. You could have a different sidebar for each page. Now, there's other ways of doing this. A variety of plugins are available that you can flag your plugins. You put all of your widgets in the sidebars, and you can flag those widgets so that certain ones will show up on certain pages. Excuse me.
Excellent.
But your sidebar then gets really cluttered with widgets quite easily, and you're trying to figure out which one is where and what order they go in. And if you wanted the same widgets on one page as another, but you wanted them in a different order to focus certain ones at the top, you couldn't do that. But with WhoSidebars, you actually create a unique sidebar for each page or group of pages, and it allows you much more fluid and much more intuitive control. Worth a look if you haven't looked at it already, and especially if you wish you could have some things on one page and different things on another. It's worth it. Really. Quick Page Post Redirect plugin is a way to redirect pages, 301 redirects in particular. If you don't know what that's all about, we probably should do a presentation on that in itself sometime.
Oh, absolutely. That's very interesting. Yeah,
it is important, Susan, that we cover that, and this is the plugin to use for it. And then Jetpack is a plugin by WordPress. A lot of people say, oh, Jetpack is too bulky. It has too much stuff in it. It'll slow down my site. Well, if your site is slowing down because of Jetpack, you have another problem. It's not Jetpack. It's something else that you need to look at. Jetpack is a fairly small plugin, actually, because it doesn't have very much in it. It has access to a whole lot in it, but the stuff itself is on the WordPress servers. It's from the people at WordPress, WordPress.com, and it is a whole bunch of features that they've had available on their free WordPress.com sites, but the self-installed WordPress, WordPress.org, has not had that material available until Jetpack. But the actual workings of Jetpack are delivered from the powerful WordPress servers, and this shouldn't slow your site down. So those are my starter plugins that I
That's really
recommend
yeah.
to everybody. Yeah, and that's good. I'm going to quickly go through a list of other plugins that you might want to consider for specific things.
We're just sort of scoping through on time. I don't know, does anyone have any questions? So can I? No, I know that list is just amazing, and I've actually saved it, but I have to.
I'm going to. I'm just going to. I'll quickly show this list. I won't touch on each of these because the recording will then pick it up, and you can look at. But these are a number of plugins you might want to research yourself, and I think you'll find some useful ones here that are very good. And then I have one more slide to share, and that is 2 links to some current information that just came out in the past a couple of days about some malware in plugins. This is from the WordFence people, and it's worth having a look at. These are plugins that have problems. They've been delivered from the creators with malware inside of them. So that's one of the problems of using plugins, of course, is that you have to be sure of your sources, and it's why it's good to talk to somebody who knows what's available. And that's all I've got there. Okay, go ahead, Susan. I'm sorry to interrupt there at the end.
No, that's good. We'll leave that up there so people can go through it. And of course, like in the recording, we can stop and freeze. I've taken a print screen of the plugins myself. I have to admit, only 3 of them I've ever used. And some of my clients, I've seen them in some of my clients. I have a question though. I am working with Elementor. Is that the right name?
Yes.
Yep, for that. And I can't get it to work in Internet Explorer. I had to go to Chrome, and that's happened to me a couple of times. But I don't know if that's a WordPress issue or a...
Well, it's unfortunately an Internet Explorer issue.
Yep.
Internet Explorer is Microsoft's browser, and they have done things differently. Microsoft seems to think that they are above the rest of the world, and they do things differently, I believe deliberately, to control. Their goal is really to control the internet, or at least it was at one time, and they kind of make the rest of the world come to them. And so you will have trouble using Internet Explorer for certain things. Firefox, which used to be my favorite browser, has sort of gone the same way. They've been kind of taken over by a different group of people, and they seem to have a different agenda. And as a result, they're doing things that are really good, but not standard. And so sometimes you have difficulty. Chrome, which is Google's browser, is probably the better choice. I use it extensively now, and it's a little bit better for all things internet. And that's unfortunate. This way back in the beginning, there used to be the browser wars, and it was you like Coke or Pepsi kind of thing. And often you saw a website that had a little notice at the bottom that said best viewed using, and then that named the browser, because there were different coding methods to create a website for different browsers. We got past that, and browsers kind of standardized, and they delivered the same things to the same people. Now they're going back to it again. I don't know why, and it's a shame. But use Chrome.
Chrome, okay, great.
Yeah,
Christopher's
that's
got
only
a
for
question.
the workings of Elementor, but the page itself, the resulting page, will display properly in all.
Yeah, that's what I found. Now, Christopher's got a question. He says, can you control multiple WordPress websites from a singular install of Jetpack? Wow, Christopher, that's a complicated question.
No, it's a good question. WordPress comes, when you install WordPress, the core files have 2 ways to install it. One is just a single WordPress installation, but the second is a thing called Multisite. And Multisite allows you on one WordPress installation to create multiple websites, including having separate domain names. So it's a powerful installation. and it's certainly worth looking into. And in fact, I
Yep.
know Chris knows about Multisite, so invite Chris in sometime to do a presentation on Multisite. It's worth learning about. It's not used by a lot of people, but the fact that you have it available for free in the actual installation is amazing. And
Nice. Yeah.
Jetpack works flawlessly with Multisite, and it actually can be used with some of the controller software that allows you to take independent installations and manage them separately. So Jetpack, there's another whole presentation on
Yes.
Jetpack as
Absolutely.
well.
Oh, Jetpack's one
Yeah.
of my favourites. Yeah. Great. No, that'd be great, Chris, if you want to come on. Love to have you as a guest. It's good. Very good. Now, I've noticed there's a lot of coding options with WordPress and the plugins. Is that, not being a coder myself, I know a little bit of HTML, but is that something you would just joyfully ignore? Or
You do not need to code anything,
anything?
HTML or anything, to use WordPress. You can use WordPress and a variety of plugins. I don't really recall, I don't think any of the plugins I shared in that first batch require any coding at all. You can use coding in WordPress, though. That's the benefit of it, is that you can, when you're inserting content, you can code right in the editors producing content. And so you can either just add text, you can use their visual editor, and with a plugin that does extensions for the visual editor, it's like writing in a word processor. You can, put titles and subtitles and all those kinds of things in different fonts and so on, different colors. So you can do that right as you enter your text without code. Or if you're like me and you code, you can put the code right into the content and extend WordPress to do just about anything you want. But you do not have to know a lick of coding to use WordPress.
Thank goodness for that. And isn't that the beauty of WordPress, though? Is that
it is?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It's all things to all people, and I've built big sites, multi-vendor, e-commerce sites with 100 or more people selling on the site. I've built membership sites with hundreds, even thousands of members, and I've built those by hand coding right from the start over the years. And I've also built those using WordPress. And now I would never use a hand coding method to build a site from scratch. I would always use a WordPress platform and then build anything I need on top of that. Simply because that base stuff is done so well in WordPress. It would be crazy to recode that in by hand.
Yes, absolutely. So
when it's already there for
you. He's asked another question. Can you control? Oh no, that's not. What is Susan's favourite tool for writing content, and what is your favourite content curation tool? I know my favourite content creation tool is my head. So I tend to write off the top, whatever comes out my little brain. But I actually write. I'm a really simple. If it's too complicated, because I have to do so many things so quickly, I tend to write in Word and cut and paste into the dashboard. If I'm worried that there's that where I select the whole lot and there's a little thing that looks like an eraser. This is how high tech I am, and that takes all any formatting out. If I'm worried about that, and then I just format everything. So I do it very simply, very, very simply, and that way I can do it en masse. Like you say, like you were saying earlier, I can sit down and write lots of content in one Word document, and then I just cut and paste each one in.
In WordPress, there are two editors. There's the visual editor and there's the text editor.
Yeah, I use the text editor when I'm putting in videos and things like that, or any HTML code I need to add. Well,
I have a plugin that I use that turns off the visual editor because I don't use it. I just use the text editor for everything I do. When I'm typing in text, I type in the HTML code to format it as I go. I don't even think about it. It's like punctuation. I just type it in. So for me, I do that. But for those who use the visual editor, and I don't, so I'll have to kind of think about this because I do teach people how to use it, but I have to kind of get in the mode. But in the visual editor, as it comes with the base WordPress, there are 2 lines of buttons. Now, some people only know about 1 line because that's all they've ever seen.
Yes,
but there's a button at the end, which we call the kitchen sink button. And if you click that, it opens up the second row of buttons. And within those 2 rows of buttons, there is a button that I think it has a T on it for text. And it's a button that you can use to insert from Word. It keeps as much of the formatting as it can and expels the things that it doesn't want. There's a lot of code underneath it when you copy from Word and paste. And so using that button is kind of a filter that gives you the best results. And a lot of people don't know about that button because they've never used it. And then the third thing about the visual editor is there is a plugin called can't think of the name of it right now. Chris, maybe you can type it if you think of it into the sidebar. It's a plugin that extends the editor in WordPress. WordPress uses an editor called Tiny MCE, and it is an editor that is a public use editor that a lot of programmers add into their things when they need an editor, but it is limited. It's a very simple word processor. This Tiny MCE Advanced. That's the name of
it. Yes, well done. You both did it at the same time.
Yeah, that's the name of the plugin, and it's our brains work that way. It shows they're both full, and it takes a little time to get through it all and find the answer. But that's an extender for the editor, which gives you up to about 5 rows, I think, of buttons, plus a row of drop-down menus of all kinds of choices. Basically, everything you can do in a word processor, you can do right in the editor. So it's worth looking at.
That's excellent. Now, we've only got a couple of minutes left. So thank Rev. I'll remind everybody that the recording will be available at billbaloo.com on the forum there and also on YouTube. Go back if you need to contact Rev about any of this fantastic stuff because it's really pertinent, it's really relevant. Once you get your head around plugins and you get, and I know from experience being rather a newbie and falling over many things, that once you get the right plugins, life is so much easier. It makes WordPress just an absolute dream to use. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So good.
Well, thanks, Susan, for the opportunity to be here. I'm glad to share, and if anybody has any other questions, when this is posted on the forum, post the questions underneath it, and I'll try to get in periodically and answer them. But feel free to contact me directly, too. It's thewiz@ourhutch.com, OURHUTCH.com.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and we look forward to catching you all next week. Bye now.